This is the next segment that we're going to talk about in the Bay Street Jewelers Repair Department. A lot of clients, as we have already discussed, we've talked about the heat of a project and going into the torch, which has been traditionally used for well over the last 100 years to end up manufacturing or repairing jewelry. But technology has come so far, especially in the recent, and now we're dealing with lasers, which is probably one of the coolest, nerdiest things in the world, but I really love it. And we have a class 4 laser that we put into the store that you're looking at right here. Lasers are actually kind of grouped as to the amount of joules that they actually have, and that's not joules like in jewelry joules, like joules, J-O-U-L-E-S. Joules is kind of defined as the amount of wattage times the milliseconds that you have equals 1 joule, kind of like horsepower would be to a car. In this particular case, this is a 100 joule system. They averagely come in a 40 joule system up to 150 joules. I didn't need the power to go to 150 joules, but at 100 joules I'm well over the industry standards as to what actually happens to it. But let's break it down a little bit further. When you end up looking at the screen of the laser itself, you'll see that it actually has the voltage as the first line on the far left. The voltage is the amount of energy that's actually being produced to end up making the laser happen. The next one is actually adapted as what we call the milliseconds. That's the time that the laser is actually going to be on the heat itself. Then we transfer over to the hertz, and hertz is kind of relevant to time also because it's the number of pulses that or shots that we do per second on the item that we're working on. And then no, that is not diamond, that is diameter, or the actual width or the size of the beam of light that we're actually going to send down to it. I kind of feel like MacGyver to a large extent because I work inside of a chamber and I'm looking through a microscope as I do the required work that we're doing. The one thing that's so neat about the laser is we can go deep into something three-dimensionally, where in the past with the torch and everything else, we're kind of working 1 to 2-dimensionally and we can't get way down into the work that we're doing. This has no limitations to it, nor does it have the limitations as to the metals that we can actually work on also. There is a gas that we hook up, and for this I'm not going to end up utilizing it, but it's argon gas that connects to this also, and the purity of that is generally at about 99%, and with 99% argon we can eliminate the oxygen within the chamber, so when the laser hits the item it actually makes a lot prettier or cleaner connection to it. But let's define what an actual laser is. There's 2 different welds, or 2 different types of welds. There's the solder, which we do by a torch, and a solder is where you bond 2 units and you put some kind of catalyst or solder in between the 2 with flux that bonds the 2 units together. Well, a weld on the laser is totally different. It's molecular, so that you have the 2 pieces butted together, but when you hit it with the laser, it actually molecularizes and forms the 2 as one single bond or one single unit. So it no longer has a joint or a weak point, you might say, that a solder would end up having off of a torch. Not to disregard torches. They have a place in our system, and I use it a lot. But a lot of times the laser is more effective to the work that we're going to do. We're going to show a couple of things that we can actually do with the laser. Let's actually take our voltage and our milliseconds down just a little bit, and we're going to assume that this particular person broke the post off of their earring. So I'm going to look in my laser. I'm going to line up the post that I'm working on, and you can see how close my fingers are to the actual work. and I'm actually going to hit it with the laser itself, and just in a very simple 3-second hit, I was able to bond that post back to the work that I was doing without ever touching my fingers whatsoever. So the laser did not end up hurting me, nor did I have enough time or of the laser on the work to build up or generate any heat. So that way we can actually work with very, very heat sensitive stones also when we are talking about the laser. We're going to build up the heat because I've got a little bit larger product, and in this particular case I have 2 different types of metals. I've got 14 karat yellow, 14 karat white, and you can see my laser actually hitting the piece to the point that I can bond the 2 together, and that would end up being permanent if I ended up finishing it off. Right now it's just a simple little weld, but I would have hit it a lot harder to end up making it truly permanent. We can also get things that are extremely minute. Let's get the temperature back down just a little bit. So in this particular case, I have got 2 micro small heads, and I'm actually going to hold them side by side in exact location as to what I want them to do. And I hit them with the laser, and look at that. I was able to bond those 2 little tiny heads together with a minimal of work, where if I was doing that with a torch, it would have taken me a lot longer. Now, we can also really pump up our energy and get 2 different, like a copper penny and a nickel. And let's see if this works. You can see we could almost blow a hole through that, but we actually bonded those 2 together just like that. So I could have literally made a bracelet out of pennies or out of nickels or out of quarters or foreign currency for the most sake, just under the laser in a short amount of time. Now again, I would have done a lot more finish work on this if I was really going into it for a customer's project, but at least it kind of gives you an idea as to how the laser fits into our industry and how important it is to the work that we do. Now, instead of using the torch for intricate work that requires it being held by 3 different hands, mechanical hands, where we're having to position. Now I can sit there and truly hold it in my fingertips and take it as close up as I want into my fingertips and look through my microscope, see exactly where I want to hit that beam, and just snap it right then and there. So that's our laser lecture for today. Very simple, but if you've got a project that's very hard that you think cannot be done in the jewelry industry, then let us take a look at it. It might be something simply that can be done by the laser, and we'd be more than happy to instruct you individually. Thank you much.